Good afternoon, everybody. How are you on this beautiful, fairly sunny Tuesday afternoon? I am Lottie, founder of the Jurist Society, and we are here with The Art of Enough. This series explores how women founders navigate the financial and emotional realities of building a life and business on their own terms. This afternoon, I'm really excited to be joined by the brilliant Julia Baldet. She is the founder of Elevate Wellness, and drawing on her years in high finance and her experience, she's going to share, all about how she's redefined performance, purpose, and profit through the lens of well-being. So really excited. And as usual, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Otherwise, let's crack on with the conversation. So, good
Hi,
afternoon.
Lottie. How are you?
I am great. All the better for having you here. And I can't believe we have known each other for so long now. And I'm just so proud of seeing you grow. And yeah, I just needed to say that for a start. It's
Well, thank
wonderful.
you so much, and thank you for having me. It's true, it's been a while, and we go back from my finance days, so
Yeah,
yeah, quite a
yeah.
change from that.
It's super exciting. But for anybody who doesn't know, let's start with your story and what inspired the creation of Elevate and your journey to focus on holistic well-being for others.
Sure. So I'm the founder of Elevate, which is a functional smoothie bar in London. We're located in the Royal Exchange in Bank. And before that, I used to work in private equity. So very different world, very different sector from, like wellness, food and beverage. Although I was investing in consumer companies. So there's kind of like a bridge, I would say, from here. But the idea of Elevate really started as a consumer frustration. I couldn't find anything like that on the market. So I just decided to create it myself.
Well, that is it. It's all about problem solving. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs basically create something that they want in the most simple of ways. It's like you see the gap there. You're probably not the only person seeing that gap there. But I think with you in particular, your experience in private equity will have really helped you in building this business. And many people see wellness and finance as two opposites, but now your career bridges both. How has your experience influenced how you run and scale your business now?
So I honestly think that my private equity experience was just like such a blessing when it comes to like building a business. Because it's, although, in terms of like operation, of course, I've never like operated the business myself before.
Mm.
I think that, working in finance and kind of like analyzing P&Ls and like different businesses from like different sectors every day and really trying to dissect everything to understand like the core of the business, understand like if the business is a good investment, if it's profitable, it just gives you like amazing tools when it comes to building a business. So of course I'm starting small with one smoothie bar, but the idea is to scale and then to create a chain of like multiple smoothie bars. But I'm really building this business from the ground up, like as if it was like a bigger company. So I really wanted to put in place like the operational tools that would help me to scale. And this, I think, is really, I would say, something that I got from this way of thinking from like my finance days, like before even like doing the business and just like, deciding to leave my job, which was a pretty big decision. I really did my due diligence as if I would be potentially an investor investing in this business and being like, okay, let's see if the market is attractive. So I spoke with like former executives in places like Starbucks, like Costa, like a lot of like high street retailers in the UK or in the coffee industry. Once I, saw that there was a gap, I just then thought, okay, now let's be like in private equity, you would hire advisors to help you build a business. And so this is what I've done. And I think that this has really helped me like every steps of the way for sure.
Well, that's brilliant, and so so lucky, and switched on for you as well to look at it from more of an analytical point of view rather
Yeah.
than it being a purely passion project. You've got that sensibility as well as the creativity. But I guess if we look back at your years in finance, which is probably a little bit less of the creativity, what did you learn and see about ambition and performance and, burnout ultimately, which shaped your decision to leave and create something for yourself?
So I think that my definition of success was very different from what it is now. And as a kind of like, when I graduated from business school, I thought that like working in finance in London would be like the best thing that I could do for my career. And so
Control.
for me, like, exactly, like the kind of like success factors were more, I would say, about like external success, external like validation, and do a job that would be like socially like well recognized. And again, I'm someone very ambitious, so that's why I thought finance is great. I'm saying like a lot of different things. It's like a fast-paced environment, so that was like perfect in that way. But I think that as the years passed by, and I started to also see like the trade-off that comes like with this type of career. Would it be like in terms of like health? My health wasn't great. I was like not taking care of myself, like neglecting myself, and just like also in terms of like relationships, I wasn't being like there like 100%. And even if I was there, let's say with my family, with my boyfriend, I wasn't really present in the moment. I know that sounds like really cliche, but it's just like at some point I just came to that realization that it was not enough for me. It wasn't good enough for me. So this is when I kind of like saw my priorities change. And now of course I'm still chasing like success in the way of like financial success, because it's a business. So I want this business to work well, make a lot of money, be profitable. I think that right now, even though I'm still like thinking of that, what's most important is just like having fun while doing what I'm doing, and do something where I can just like be my own boss and decide on my own terms like how I organize my day. And honestly, don't get me wrong, I'm probably working more now, but it's just like so much different to be able to say, okay, now I just want to make time to be present in the moment for like just a nice dinner out, and then I'm working if I need to. So I would say that these are the biggest difference that I observed from the finance day and how I was perceiving success.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of sort of the mental well-being side of entrepreneurship. Like, yes, you've still got the pressure from
Yeah,
yourself and from people around you, but that sense of autonomy gives you more ability to work to your own energy levels and to your own preferences. So you're not feeling overly pressurized by saying, you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, well, if I can't physically do this right now, I know I can give myself some bandwidth to actually take care of myself so I can look after my business better. And you're not just sort of,
exactly.
yeah. So you can
Sometimes,
actually,
just taking a break is not like counterproductive. I think it's even better, because then it's a long-term journey, so then you can perform
yeah.
better in the long term for sure.
Yeah, and setting your own hours, I think, is hugely important, and I think is overlooked a lot of the time with sort of the corporate structures that we have. In you must be at the office at 8 a.m. and you can't leave there, and it's like, but if you need some sense of inspiration, if you're doing something creative or you're creating something, it might not happen within those hours, and you might
Exercise window.
yeah, that little window, you're like, come on, come on, come on, and it's like, no, it's not happening. And then that allows you to have that creativity, which is such an essence that you can't capture so well in a corporate
Yeah.
environment. But you did learn some brilliant frameworks from there. What can you share have been the most valuable in building Elevate? I know we mentioned about bringing on a board, getting advisors, etc. But what other financial disciplines or investment frameworks from your PE days have really helped you?
I think Like I've had to raise a bit of money to start
Mhm.
Elevate, because it's very it's very expensive to open a business in central London, like prime
Yeah.
location. So I had to raise a bit of money, but I would say that maybe, unlike some startups that will raise money and just like don't care, because they're like, oh yeah, we'll raise a bit more if needed, and that's fine if we burn cash. I know that I'm operating in industry that fundamentally can be profitable. So I'm really building this business around like profitability. And I think that this is really what I'm chasing. And we've been profitable from the first months of opening, which is great. But I'm always looking at that and having that in mind when taking decisions. So I would say that I'm maybe, compared to some other founders, I don't know, I might be maybe a bit more risk averse and more disciplined when it comes to like using cash. But again, I'm really building this business for the long term, and I want to be able to grow and do this like also organically, not just chasing the next like fundraise and everything, because as you mentioned, I also have the pressure, like from like the business, and I know that the ball stops with me, so it's my responsibility to actually like generate money. So I would say that this is maybe like another big thing that I took from private equity to apply to Elevate right now.
That's really, really, yeah, very useful. It's having, yeah, those insights, but also the discipline. I think that's a huge one that
Yeah,
underpins all of this. And I like the fact that you admit that you are risk averse, because I think for some people, there's a stigma to saying you're risk averse, where it could be seen as an almost like a weakness or something like that. I don't want to take risks, but actually you're taking considered risks because you've mapped it
exactly.
out, which is such a powerful position to be in. And I think that actually it's understanding risk, which is possibly for a lot of women that we don't actually understand what risk is and what it looks like. But when you've done the research and you can understand it, you can navigate it with more power.
100%. I think it's, as you mentioned, it's all about like understanding it and doing the research. So every time you're doing something that, is kind of like considered as a risk, I always have this kind of like mitigants in place where I'm like, okay, if, this thing fails for whatever reason, we don't need to know like why or how. It's more like, what can we do to either like mitigate that, solve that, or if there is nothing that can be done, then the question is like, is this risk absolutely worth it? But I agree that it really comes from a place of like, let's map out what can happen, and like really let demystify the what are the risks, just to make sure that we're making like informed decisions.
Yeah, exactly. But informed decisions, key word there. But
Yeah.
also, I think sustainability of your model is there, and how, because you're now in a sector that can be emotionally driven, well-being, but it's also commercially challenging. As you mentioned, you've got your overheads, you need to sustain
Yeah.
it all. How do you balance purpose with profit?
I think that I'm constantly reminded of like why I started Elevate. And I think that because my story was so like authentic and coming from an actual place of like struggle, and really I was craving for some well-being, and like
Yeah.
it would be like mental health, but also physical health.
Mm.
I think that I would say that I always remember what I started this in the first place, which is also what gets me going during like tougher days, because entrepreneurship is a lot of ups, a lot of downs as well. So I would say that it's just like having, like my knowing that, how would I say that? It's more like having in mind the kind of like long-term vision, but also being able to look in the kind of like rear mirror to be like, okay, this is why I started this, and this is where I'm coming from. So it's like always an exercise between both, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's it. And it's balancing the long-term and short-term vision as well, and making sure that you are still aligned with the decisions that you're making, with your informed decisions, and then just checking back regularly and saying, am I still aligned with this, or am I chasing something that I don't believe in? Because sometimes that can happen, especially when you're surrounded by people who might be trying to push or pull you into different directions. It's like, you know what you created the intention of your business for. And so, yeah, sticking to that track and being disciplined. I guess for anyone who's watching this, or just in general, anyone transitioning from finance or corporate life, which has that wonderful golden handshake approach to it, perhaps golden cuff, what they called handcuffs, not handshake, into entrepreneurship. What are the financial mindset shifts that are essential to make that leap? Because obviously it's very nice having a stable income, a regular stable income, possibly at the detriment to your mental and physical health. What did you do to prepare yourself for that transition?
So, it actually took me time, and probably I would say like too long to live, because I had those kind of like handcuff where I was like, okay, I've like a nice salary. I'm, getting increased like every year. Is like, okay, it's like really hard and challenging, and maybe it's not what I want to do in the long term, but it's really easy to see that comfort and be like, at the end of the day, you're gonna get your salary in the bank account. And it can be like, I would say, really terrifying to just like live and be like, okay, now I have zero income. It's just like me on my own.
Over to you.
Exactly. But I think that for me, I just like left when I knew that I, put enough aside to actually stay, let's say, 1 year before working. And I would say that for anybody that is kind of like thinking about living, the best way of doing it would be to prepare in advance and be like, okay, I'm kind of like setting aside maybe every month, every like bonuses, or just to make sure that when you leave, you can make this choice like being fully aligned with yourself and not like regret it. Like 2 weeks after, thinking, oh my God, now I need to find like a job just to put food on the table. So I would say that it comes with a lot of like preparation, just like mental preparation, but also putting everything like aside. And just, I think that also the mental part might be actually the biggest one, because it's a very big shift, and it can be really, I would say, challenging to not know when you're going to start generating money. So there is also like, I would say, like a point in like making sure that you're comfortable with this risk, and that, to our point earlier, like making an informed decision and knowing that, maybe if the project you're working on and the company you're starting to launch doesn't work, maybe if you know that you can still go back to like your previous industry or your previous job. I think that's also something that helps when you wonder, okay, what's the worst case scenario, what could happen. In my case, I knew that I could find like another job in private equity if I really wanted to, if that didn't work. So I think that's also what helped me to just like cut the noise, I would say, of like the insecurity when it comes to like income and generating some money.
Yeah, that's it. And that huge element of self-belief, I think, as well,
Yes.
is key. And thinking, right, if it is, it's almost like, is it the Mayfly or whatever? You've got a 5-day life, it's like, and you die, and you're reborn, and it's like, well, you've just got to keep momentum going, and you have to go back to what your original vision was, and keep reminding yourself, this is why I'm doing it. Because so many doors close, you have to really push on so many doors to get anywhere. And I think that element of resilience is not to be taken lightly, because even if you have the most brilliant and robust business plan in the world, it's only as good as how it goes live, and you cannot really guess how it's going to be received in the real world until you try.
No, exactly. And I think you're making a really good point, in the sense that nobody is going to care or believe as much as you do in your own business. So if you don't believe in yourself or your business, sometimes to the point of like almost delusion, I would say, when you have to raise money, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and it's going to be great. And, you have no idea how you're going to come from like this point to like point B. I think that, as you mentioned, it requires a great amount of like confidence, or at least kind of like faking the confidence to get to it, but no one can do this for you. And as you say, you can have the best business plan, the best idea in the world. If you don't believe in it, nobody's gonna do. So that's I think that's a really important one.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that brings us nicely on to this idea of success. Because as you mentioned, financial success is a huge element of a driver to create a business. But what does it mean to you now that you've actually started on this journey of entrepreneurship?
I think that for me, it's just really being aligned with my purpose. And I know it can really sound like cliche, but I really feel aligned in what I do every day. And it's just like every day it's a pinch me moment when I see like a customer walking through our doors and ordering, or that is just like a regular, comes every week, sometimes twice a day, and is like, oh my god, I'm so glad you opened here. It really changed like the way I'm just getting my breakfast, lunch. So it's just like seeing the impact that I'm potentially having. I think that this is my definition of success, being able to also just like being more creative and being more aligned with the skills I want to develop or use on a day-to-day basis. I think that this is also a definition of success. Making my own timeline and schedule, as we mentioned earlier, this is also part of my definition of success. So I think that these are a lot of like different elements that makes the definition of success. And for sure, there is also the financial aspect, but right now, I'm still not like paying myself. So that's not, I would say that it's not like the most important element right now, but I really think that as the business grows and as we develop, everything hopefully comes into like alignment. And for sure, to me, success is not being able to say, oh, I'm just like working in finance and I'm doing this job that is like socially like well regarded.
Yeah, I love that. And again, it is such a personal definition. Yeah. And everything that you say there, it's having the autonomy, it's having that idea of purpose. And I think a lot of people, when they're stuck in the corporate world, they don't really have that sense of purpose.
No, exactly.
Because they're just doing as they're told, and there is some sort of complacency that happens in that situation. And then you come out the other side, or maybe you lose your job and you're like, who am I? Like, what have I learned that isn't my job? And it's that whole identity discussion, which can really be alleviated by entrepreneurship. And I love the fact that you're continuously learning. For you, when you were set out before you started, didn't you go off and do your training as a barista? So what the process is.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, let's go back to redesigning the corporate world then around well-being. What would you change first, given your experience on both sides of the pond now?
I think that I would maybe infuse a bit more trust and flexibility. I mean, of course, especially working, depending on the industries, but it's true that if you work in finance, in law, any type of like corporate, you need to come to the office. I have like no debate about that. And I think, that's also the way to kind of like get the best ideas, is also to discuss with some people. But a lot of people are also, as you say, like different, and sometimes like I would say they work best when they are like focused on their own. So I would just like maybe infuse a bit more trust, in the sense that at least from my experience from like big banks and everything, it was very rigid when it comes to like the structures, the days you need to be in, while like we were all, I would say, high achievers and like people that would work like no matter what. So I think that's something I would change if I have to pick one.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that idea of trust is so important for employees, but also for clients, because it's trust us to get the work done as and when we need it, and being a little bit more understanding of individuals within that corporate entity. So yeah, I mirror your sentiments there. So now you are an island an island of Julia. You're navigating this world on your own effectively. You do have some brilliant support around you, but what are some of the practical tools or rituals that you either do or recommend for protecting your energy and setting your boundaries?
Oh, that's a good one. I think that for me, it comes to like really planning everything. That might be a bit extreme, but I'm putting everything in my calendar. And if it's not in my calendar, it's not happening because there are so many things, that are happening both from like professional, personal life that I like to have everything like in one place. And so every morning as I plan my day, I'm saying, okay, I have to do this today, this time. And it really, I think that it really helps me to kind of like put like boundaries when it comes to like picking my battles and really focusing on what's important. So then having everything, in one place and kind of like helps me every morning assessing, okay, is this actually needed? Or is this something, that I can like decline or maybe reschedule when it's, a bit more quiet and I have more time? Especially that there are so many things like demanding my attention all the time as an entrepreneur. So I would say that it's really kind of like really taking control of like my agenda and my schedule. That's the best way to, for me at least, to have like everything visually there, and then I can just decide to say no. I think learning to say no, especially to protect your boundaries, is really important. It can be a bit difficult, and sometimes there is a bit of guilt associated to that, to say, oh, I'm super sorry. But I think at the end of the day, everybody is also like focusing on like themselves, so it's also okay to say no, just because you need to protect yourself, because otherwise you stretch yourself too thin and you can really end up like burning out as fast as you would probably incorporate, for example.
I think that's so true. And scheduling is a skill in
Yeah.
in a sense. And I think, it's there's always something much more fun to do than something
Yeah.
that you're already meant to be doing. So having that discipline, again, comes back to discipline, is really, really important. So as we draw this conversation down to a close, as you know, the Jura Society explores the intersection of wealth and well-being. How do you see the relationship between financial security and emotional health in your life?
I think that having financial security is definitely helps when it comes to like being I would say feeling like stable and having like emotional health. I
Hmm.
think that it's true that the times where, for example, I was raising money and everything was uncertain, of course, in terms of like emotional health, I was a bit like stressed a bit. But I think that if you have like the right support system in place, so like family, your friends, like potentially a partner that is like not here to help you financially, but just like support you emotionally speaking. That's the most important part. And again, I really think that when you take this type of decision, it's really good to come with preparation. So at least you can remove, I would say, one of the aspects that can potentially threaten your emotional stability, which is like financial uncertainty. So that's I would the way I would see the relationship between both.
Love that. Yeah, that's very wise of you. Um, so, final question. What does enough look like for you in life, business, and health right now?
Oh my God. Um, well, in life, I think that it's being, I would say, at peace. I would say, with all my relationships, and being also fully present. So if I decide to spend some time with my friends, with my family, with my fiance, like it's just like being there and being like, if it means to say no to something else or work later, I think that's I would say like compromise I'm willing to do. And right now I have this, so I'm in terms of like personal life, I'm so glad because it feels like I have enough and I have everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to business, I'm just at the start of the journey, so of course I want more. And I want to grow this business and scale it. So I wouldn't say that right now I have enough in the sense that I want to keep going, but knowing that I'm aligned with my vision and just like what I'm doing every day is taking me closer to my end goal is enough for me. Because, you know, I know that at the end of the day, it's just like the result. And if you attain your objective, it's just like the compound of all the small actions that you're making. So I know that I'm heading in the right direction. And then what was the last one? Was it health, you
Health.
said?
Health,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's just like also being able to prioritize my kind of like well-being, and understanding that sometimes if I'm finishing work or starting work maybe like 45 minutes before or earlier, because I need to, you know, do a Pilates session or go on a walk or do some, just move my body or just like relax. It's just like understanding that it's not counterproductive. It's actually an investment that I'm doing in I would say myself, to be able to carry me for the rest of the journey. So for me, enough would be to be able to do these things, and this is also something I'm currently being able to do, which I was not before. So that's
Well,
definitely a win, I would say.
well, that again comes back to scheduling and
Yes.
having the time to do that. Because yeah, I remember when I had a real job, you know, if you wanted to do, say, a Pilates class at lunchtime, it's an hour long. So, you know, you didn't have time to shower or anything, or you'd be running back like in between. I think maybe they need to,
And you
do
end
they
up
just,
more stressed when you
yeah,
come back. You're like, I
and you're
finished
like, oh god,
anything.
and my hair's still wet, and this is all chaotic, and this was meant to be good fun. Or you have to go to like the 6 a.m. class, and then you're just knackered for the day, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, how does this work? Yeah. So again, scheduling, having that time to yourself, I think is so important. But yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I'm so excited. And if you want to just share with everybody where they can find you, before we
Yeah,
close.
sure. Thank you so much for having me. We are located at 29 Royal Exchange, so it's outside of the Royal Exchange on Threadneedle Street. And then if you want to find us on socials, it's Elevate Wellness UK on both like Instagram and TikTok as well.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, you've done amazing as well. Everybody go and look at all of the campaigns and everything that Julia's put together. Like, she's made it super cool. So yeah,
Thank
I love it. I love it
you.
all. I'm so excited about this, and looking forward to coming down and trying them all very soon. So thank you so much, Julia, for sharing all of your words of wisdom. Thank you for everybody tuning in or catching us on the replay. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you very soon. See you later.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Routine. Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye.